Movie nerds, have you been paying attention to Amazon Prime? Well, if you haven't, they've been dropping some pretty solid movies for a while. The standout of last year was naturally the biopic about Nike designing the Air Jordan and the struggle of signing Michael Jordan as a client. This month, they dropped a few new releases to Amazon Prime. One, a throwback comedy reminiscent of the late 90s and early 2000s entitled, and the second is one you've seen all the promo for over the last few months. Say it with me. Which is a remake, redo? What would you call this?
It's a reimagination. It's not the same story. Yeah. It's a trope off of the story.
Yeah, that's what we'll call it. Buckle up with me as I give you the rundown on these films and review if each one is fire or a flop.
Let us begin.
Ricky Stanicky tells a story of three childhood friends who make up an imaginary friend to get out of trouble as youngsters and grow up only to contribute to that lie and get out of responsibilities as adults. Their ruse is almost discovered, so they hire a male stripper/actor played by John Cena to bring their fake friend to life. Misadventures begin, and the lie of Ricky Stanicky being fake, thus exposing our main character's scheme, is a ticking time bomb the audience is waiting for to explode. If the antics seem familiar to something out of Dumb and Dumber or There's Something About Mary, it's for good reason. Those movies were directed by the Farrelly brothers, and one half of that duo, Peter Farrelly, directs this one as well. I will say I thought the duo had lost their touch after the messes that were the Three Stooges and Dumb and Dumber 2. But what I didn't realize is Peter Farrelly has solo directed a few films himself, one of which was Green Book, which was a smash hit in 2018. Ricky Stanicky feels familiar as the antics and scheme, covering up a lie and finding a bunch of ways to hide it, are something familiar again to Dumb and Dumber, There's Something About Mary, The Ringer, and The Heartbreak Kid. Again, all films by the Farrellys. Even knowing that is the core of this movie, this film feels like a return to comedic form for Farrelly. While no one scene has the memorability of any of his previous films, the performance of John Cena really stands out as he goes head first into not only playing the male stripper Rod, but also bringing the fake character Ricky Stanicky to life for everyone he interacts with. Zac Efron does great playing the straight guy bit like he did in Dirty Grandpa, and is additionally reunited with Farrelly after having worked with him before on The Greatest Beer Run Ever. You can tell he's having fun in the role, and it feels like a great role to take on after bearing the heaviness of playing Kevin Von Erich in last year's Iron Claw. Another notable mention is comedian Andrew Santino, who I've been a fan throughout the years after seeing him on various podcasts, and the Little Dicky FX show Dave, where he plays the reoccurring role of Mike, Dave's best friend and manager.
Yeah, that was good. You're right.
Good.
You're totally right.
Good.
Well said.
Now Daddy needs to go feel some tingles, so I'm gonna go do drugs in the car.
Drugs?
As many as I've got.
Santino brings solid comedic delivery to this role, and overall it's nice to finally see him getting some shine on the big screen. Overall, I enjoyed this movie. While we have seen a decline in rated R comedies due to the fact Hollywood doesn't think they can bring in money like they used to, it's movies like this that challenge that idea and really give me hope that because there's been a lack of them in the past decade, the desire of people to want to see them more may be a market that's slowly coming back. So is this worth checking out? My answer? Yeah, it's definitely worth a watch by yourself or a group of friends. Or it's even a great movie to have in the background of a get-together, just to point out a funny line or a scene while you're having a few drinks. I saw this at an early screening, and I will say the whole audience definitely laughed throughout many points of this film. I don't expect this to win any awards, but I do see this as a great gateway for John Cena to do a lot more comedic roles, where eventually he becomes the leading man and not just a side character. Next up, let's talk about... I'll be honest, I wasn't completely sold on the trailers that dropped for this movie, and with it going straight to DVD, straight to streaming, my desire to watch it went down just a little bit more. Going into this, I hadn't seen the original in its entirety, but I've seen bits and pieces of the film growing up, so I had a vague concept of what could happen. The thing that intrigued me the most, however, was the UFC element. As a UFC fan, the only behind-the-scenes footage I had seen was the fake weigh-in from UFC 285, and also fan footage showing the fight between Gyllenhaal and former UFC fighter Jay Heron. Additionally, as a UFC fan, the next thing that intrigued me was the acting debut of...
Notorious for a reason.
For just a little context, I'm actually a huge fan of MMA and boxing. They're actually the only two sports I follow and have trained since 2009. I also used to host an MMA podcast from 2014 to 2018 where I was lucky enough to interview UFC fighters and coaches, and within that time got lucky enough to commentate for a local MMA event here in Austin, Texas.
And I think he feels confident in his speed, but he's getting tagged up here by Boone as he's against the cage because he doesn't have the space that he needs to, I think, able to use the speed to get out of the way of those punches.
Personally, I've been a fan of Conor since his first fight against Marcus Brimage in the UFC and have followed his career ever since. Often in the last few years, he's been involved in a lot of scandal, and it's been hard to be a fan, but I thought if he could bring some of that energy that made him popular in his press conferences and post-fight interviews.
He makes gun signs with the right hand and animal balloons with the left hand.
Carrying a school bag on stage. What are you doing with a school bag on stage? You can't even read. This guy TKOs people. When I knock people out, they don't fucking move. They're like, who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that? You know damn well who I am. Who the fuck is that?
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the he wants.
I'm a fucking pimp. Fucking guilty Mick. And without me, this whole fucking shit sink.
If he could hone that energy, especially into a villain role, I thought it would make a great film debut. And as I tuned into Roadhouse, I prayed I would be proven right. This updated reimagining of Roadhouse tells the story of Elwood Dalton, a former UFC fighter turned underground fighter, down on his luck. He's offered an opportunity to be the head bouncer at the Roadhouse, a bar notoriously drawing in delinquents and troublemakers. Dalton cleans up the place bit by bit, but is targeted by a shady real estate mafia mogul, Ben Brandt, who is intent on shutting down the Roadhouse so he can turn it into a resort and casino. When Brandt's plans fail to stop Dalton, a freelance enforcer named Knox is called in by Brandt's father to clean up the mess and to stop Dalton once and for all. In all honesty, I was very surprised at how much fun I had watching this movie. The action is actiony, but not Fast and Furious levels of crazy. The comedy is delivered in sharp, quippy, cheesy one-liners that are reminiscent of the 80s.
Is there a hospital nearby? Is it like too far? Is it close?
About like 25 minutes, I'd say. Like depending on the traffic, what time of day.
Mo, I got a tip for you. Don't let no one get this close.
And Jake Gyllenhaal makes his character so likable, being both kind and badass. But what about McGregor? McGregor brings a certain swag to this villain and carries himself like a character based on his real-life ego. It's over the top in the best of ways that serve the purpose of this crazy modern-day Western story. He's a fun bad guy much in the same way Sting was in Dune or Jason Momoa was in Fast X. Additionally, his fight scenes with Gyllenhaal are some of the best and most fun parts of the movie. They also feel real too. Maybe not the damage after every exchange, because these guys got more lives than Super Mario, but the moves feel real. The swinging of the punches, the transition of inside clinch fighting, the throws, kicks, and hammer fists, it looks like some real professional barbarianism. Could have used more ground game for my taste, but I get that doesn't look as sexy on screen as stand-up fighting does. The brashness we've seen from McGregor's press conferences definitely transitions to the big screen in all the right ways. Anyone who says it doesn't, well, I'm guessing they're a movie critic and not an MMA fan. Otherwise, they would have seen what was presented on screen a long time ago when McGregor used to own the mic at pressers. The movie in a nutshell feels like a modern day B movie and is self-aware enough to lean into that fact and really have fun with a lot of the nuances of the characters in its setting. So is this one also worth checking out? Yeah, again, this movie may win 0 awards, but it's definitely rewatchable and recommendable to all the action bros out there. You can either get the text from your friends telling you to watch this movie, or you can be the one sending the text. The choice is yours. For me, this movie is definitely a must-watch, either as a fun action movie or a guilty pleasure. Gyllenhaal's performance definitely draws you in and really gives the movie the heart it needs. The same heart I wasn't sure it had based on the trailer alone. I will say if anybody gives this movie a bad score, it's either because they're comparing it to the original or had some wild blockbuster expectation and can't accept this is simply a fun, campy, B-level, self-aware movie. Well, that's it for me. I hope you get a chance to see both films, and if you have seen them, let me know what you thought below. Did you love them? Did you hate them? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Don't forget to follow the channel for more movie breakdowns and tune in every Monday as our crew breaks down
FX's Shogun.
For now, I'm Money Blakeweather, and I'm signing off. Thank you for taking some time to tune in. Feel free to follow or at least stop by here and there. And as always, whether it's morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time you're listening to this, I do appreciate you. And until the next time, I will see you. Peace.